outreach. State in charges have been asked to tour the state, while Jay Panda will start from Upper Assam. Co-in-charge Pawan Sharma will tour Barak Valley. Sources also say that the Home Minister will visit Assam again in the second week of January along with Party President JP Nadda.
फाइनल आसाम के चुनाव आने वाले हैं, यहां पर भी फिर से एक बार पूर्ण बहुमत की भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार। आज आसाम विकास के रास्ते पर चल पड़ा है। कांग्रेस पार्टी कर सकती है क्या? वो भी नहीं कर सकती। आसाम को विकास दे सकते हैं क्या? आसाम के युवाओं को नौकरी दे सकते हैं क्या? आसाम को घुसपैठ से बचा सकते हैं क्या? केंद्र सरकार और आसाम सरकार दोनों साथ में रहकर ही कर सकते हैं। भाजपा की ये डबल इंजन जोड़ी आसाम के बाढ़ का स्थायी समाधान ढूंढ सकती है।
I'm joined by Payal Mehta on the broadcast. Payal, good morning. Now, development, Hindutva and security are the BJP's prime election cards. How is that playing out with the report cards of both the Manipur and the Assam governments?
Well, of course, the Assam government has been in power for the last 5 years, has done successful amount of work as well, and that is what the BJP really takes heart from. Because remember, their window and their opportunity to enter the Northeast has been via Assam. And that is something which is going to be extremely critical given the fact that you have an election coming up in the next 1 year. Manipur, of course, has also survived a number of storms, and now Biren Singh stands pretty stable with his government, having secured a number of, MLAs from the opposition camp as well. So obviously the BJP is eyeing the upcoming Assam elections. They do understand that it's a very, very critical election for them. Also technically, after the demise of Tarun Gogoi, the Congress unit over there is also a very weakened one as well. And the kind of impact that Himanta Biswa Sharma has had over a period of time in the Northeast region is extremely critical for the party's chances. And that's one of the reasons the BJP leader and Home Minister Amit Shah has asked the state unit to essentially come up and work out on the possible partnerships, possible allies, to also look at the seat divisions. Because Ayushman, you would understand that there are at least 20 plus seats where the Muslim population is hugely dominant, and possibly the BJP understands that this might not be their traditional vote bank. So the BJP will then want to see how they want to, divide these seats along with the allies as well. Also, there has to be a lot of organizational work which has to be put into place, including forming of teams, committees, etc. That is something which also has been advised by Amit Shah to be done before he comes back. And he's also told the state units that it is just a matter of putting in 100% hard work this time around. And once the BJP is able to form a government in majority, then possibly next few terms will not be all that difficult. So Amit Shah, along with JP Nadda, will be returning to the Northeast region, especially to Assam, in the second week or the third week of January next year. And that is when they'll shape up for the details.
Thank you, Payal, for joining us on the broadcast. We're also joined by Niloy Bhattacharjee, reporting from Guwahati. Niloy, good morning. The political dynamics keep shifting in the Northeast, but has the BJP now settled itself as the nucleus of any pan-Northeastern alliance?
Definitely, Ayushman, as NEDA holds importance out here, the Northeast Democratic Alliance is doing pretty good. If you see Arunachal, 6 JDU MLAs have shifted to BJP recently, and after that shift also, the local body election, the BJP has fared very well in Arunachal Pradesh. In Manipur, if you say where Amit Shah is visiting in few moments from now, after his visit in Kamakhya, after he pays obeisance in Kamakhya, he will straight away go to Manipur. In Manipur, if you see, recently 3 MLAs resigned. After the resignation of the 3 MLAs, BJP's strength was relegated from 21 to 18. But the by-elections after the Rajya Sabha, the by-elections BJP could get 4 out of the 5 seats, and that has taken their number to 23. That puts them in absolute majority in the state, though they are in alliance with NPP and NPF, that's Naga People's Front. Now, Amit Shah's visit to Manipur was scheduled in somewhere in November, and for some known reasons, it has been postponed till today. Now, Amit Shah, while he goes there, he has a couple of important things to do. First thing, he has to meet the civil society organization, that is a conglomeration of all the social organizations who are fighting for the Naga, for their cause. Now, one thing has to be remembered out here, the Naga Peace Act it's yet to be inked, and after one that is implemented, the civil society organizations are saying that there cannot be an integration of territories on on ethnic grounds, which includes that the four districts of Manipur can be integrated within the Greater Nagaland, which Manipur has been objecting, and this has to be taken care of during this meeting. And Amit Shah has scheduled a meeting with the civil society organization somewhere at around 2:30. Along with it, Ayushman, along with it, the expansion of N. Biren Singh's government is also there, because they have won 4 seats recently. Now the expansion is always there, because there has been a dissidence earlier to this. There has been people within the deputy chief minister had resigned earlier, and they have been demanding that they need more seats. So this is one aspect where Amit Shah has to decide and has to talk it out. Plus, along with it, development of the valley is very important. So the Kuki Liberation Army Associationist Group, the United People's Front, another secessionist group with whom talks are midway. Talks have started somewhere in 2017, but the interlocutor has changed. The people have gone, the organization people have gone to Delhi to meet the MHA and ask for retainment of the interlocutor. So that has to be also taken care of, and which Amit Shah is scheduled to have meeting with all these factors out there in Manipur while his visit during the day.
Thank you, Niloy, for that comprehensive take on the BJP's northeastern push, and Amit Shah will be in Imphal today. Meanwhile, the Congress alleges that the BJP is losing its grip on Assam.
Amit Shah ji is perhaps oblivious of the history of Assam, because history of Assam is always recognized as an amalgamation of the ethnic and tribal cultures of entire northeastern region. Assam had been witnessing the turmoil of insurgency.
अमित शाह सर असम में हैं, उन्होंने एक तरह से असम में चुनावी बिगुल फूंक दिया है। वो कह रहे हैं कि आइडियोलॉजिकल चेंजेस की जरूरत है स्टेट को।
किस तरह की आइडियोलॉजी की बात कर रहे हैं, मैं तो समझ ही नहीं पाया। अक्सर राज्य सरकारें जब चुनी जाती हैं संविधान की शपथ लेती हैं, उन्होंने भी संविधान की शपथ ली, मंत्री पद या इवन जब आप मेंबर पार्लियामेंट बनते हैं, सबसे बड़ी विचारधारा तो संविधान की विचारधारा। अब कई दलों को ये मुगालता है कि संविधान और संघ के विधान में कोई फर्क नहीं है। भाई फर्क तो बहुत बड़ा है।
Now, Home Minister Amit Shah will be in Manipur today as part of his 2-day tour of the Northeast. Shah will land in Imphal today and launch a slew of projects. He will lay the foundation stone for the construction of a medical college and an IIT in the state. Shah will address a public gathering later in the day. Heavy security has been deployed in and around Imphal ahead of the Home Minister's visit. We're getting you those live visuals from Imphal. You can see Amit Shah in Imphal. He's already in the city, and to lead that BJP's saffron surge in Manipur a day after Assam. So Amit Shah now gathering the BJP cadre to make that big push in the Northeast. Prime Minister Modi has been eyeing the Northeast as the next BJP bastion, and the BJP has established itself as a major political force in the Northeast. And now Home Minister Amit Shah is in Manipur. He will launch a slew of projects in the state today. He is in Imphal. He will lay the foundation stone for the construction of a medical college and an IIT in the state. He will also address a public gathering later in the day. Heavy security has been deployed in and around Imphal for the Home Minister's visit. So as you see over there, Home Minister Amit Shah over there at the Kamakhya temple. At the Kamakhya temple, leading that BJP push in the Northeast. So Home Minister Amit Shah taking stock of the BJP cadre in the Northeast as the BJP tries to maintain its powerful position in the region, which has been Prime Minister Modi's pet project when it comes to expanding the BJP's footprint across India. I'm joined by Niloy Bhattacharjee, who's reporting live from Guwahati. Niloy, what is the significance of Home Minister Amit Shah's visit to the Kamakhya temple?
Look, as you can see, the live visuals are on. Amit Shah, Home Minister Amit Shah is in Kamakhya, the holy temple out here. visit to Kamakhya is normally it's a normal visit. Everybody who comes to Assam makes it a point that he visits to Kamakhya, pays his obeisance to the highest seat of power, to the deity out there. But if you see yesterday's meeting, and if you some correlate with today's visit to Kamakhya, yesterday in his meeting or in the gathering in Amingao, it was for the first time that such a huge conglomeration of Vaishnavite saints from the Hindu monasteries of Assam gathered out there. It was for the financial grants given to more than 8,000 the Kshatras and places of worship of Assam. But it has never been there, like all the Vaishnav saints from all these Kshatras have come and gathered at the place. Now this points out to one particular point on the Hindutva drive that BJP is being on. And Amit Shah's visit and this gathering of Vaishnavite saints has made this very obvious before 2021 assembly election. More so, Amit Shah was very, very clear on infiltration and encroachment of these Hindu monastery land by infiltrators. Now, having said so, these lands have been made encroachment free, and now financial grants have been given to these Kshatras for their expansion, beautification and renovation. Now this is overtly and more expressive, and it goes more than to say that the BJP in Assam this time, or a very consolidated force, has been going extensively on the Hindutva line. And a visit to Kamakhya also is, and if you can correlate, is an extension to this part. But more so, a visit to Kamakhya is an integral part in anybody's visit on anybody's trip to Assam without paying. And it's said that if you visit to Kamakhya once, you need to come here thrice. And if the deity doesn't call you, you can, if you plan so, you cannot make it to Kamakhya. So after this visit, after paying his obeisance to the deity, Amit Shah will directly head to Borjhar airport. From Borjhar, he will take a flight to Imphal, where he would address a huge gathering in outside the field of the City Convention Center, where he has more issues to address out there. But Amit Shah's two-day trip or two-night stay in Assam has been a very successful one, and before he leaves, he gives the state BJP unit a couple of points where the state BJP needs to work upon, and has to present him the report on the progress while he visits to the state somewhere in the second week of January.
So Amit Shah there at the Kamakhya temple in Guwahati before his visit to Imphal. I'm also joined by Payal Mehta on the broadcast. Payal, this BJP once again pushing its Vikas plus Hindutva narrative when it comes to bolstering its position in the northeast and consolidating its base in that region.
Well, absolutely. Given the fact that, yes, every time that any leader, whether it's Amit Shah or anybody else, they come to Assam, they make a point to pay obeisance or, to pay a visit to the Kamakhya temple, which is very, very significant of this region. It's a highly revered Shakti Peeth of sorts as well, and that's one of the reasons Amit Shah is going to is in fact currently paying a visit to the Kamakhya temple, obviously before he heads to Manipur. And like Niloy has been mentioning, that the BJP has been wearing Hindutva on its sleeve, and they've made no qualms about it as well. Given the fact that there has been a lot of work that the Assam government has been doing about, the beautification of the Kamakhya premises, to making sure development as far as the Kamakhya premises, the entire temple premises and also the surrounding area has also been undertaken effectively by the Sonowal government. And also the fact that, yes, the BJP does realize that it is a huge window of opportunity. Remember, in 2016, when they came into power, they just had 60 MLAs, which meant that nobody got a majority as such, but the BJP stitched up smaller partnerships to form a government. But this time around, Amit Shah has instructed the leadership that if they make that 100% push, then possibly they could be looking at a 100% government on their own. They could look at a majority government on their own, which clearly means that they won't depend on their allies. And in the coming few terms, it's going to be much, much more easier. Obviously, the BJP state unit is very upbeat with the kind of results that they've seen in the recent elections, whether it is the BTC election or the TAC elections, and they've seen the kind of response the public has really given to them. that actually makes them even more confident that yes, the impossible, or the fact that the BJP, which does not have much presence in the Northeast, at least until the last 5 years, they can see a window of opportunity and they can actually come up as a force multiplier. They can come up as a force to reckon with, a space which was largely occupied by the Congress party earlier.
Also, Payal, will this be the theme of Amit Shah's push in Manipur as well? This security, Hindutva and Vikas narrative that the BJP has been pushing in almost every election in the past few years?
When Narendra Modi came into power in 2014 and right after that, came up with a program where they said that rising Northeast, or the impact of the Northeast on the central politics or on the politics of India as well. Nobody really gave the importance that the kind of importance was given by the BJP in the Northeast. That is something which they'll continue to speak about. That is something which they'll proudly display as well. And obviously, security and the territorial, progress as far as the Northeast is concerned is extremely significant. Northeast has not been the most peaceful region in this country. They've had their own share of problems as well. But, as the Home Minister of the country also, that is going to be on Amit Shah's mind, because he's extremely watchful, he's extremely observative, he's extremely, sort of very careful when he speaks on certain issues. He's very, very careful, and he marks this region very, very carefully. So obviously, it's going to be a very important development that has come to the fore. Security undoubtedly is uncompromisable, and that is something which the Modi government has been establishing and has been saying for a long, long time.
Also, Payal, take us through the political significance of the Northeast when it comes to the numbers game at this center, and how the BJP has been able to leverage its position vis-a-vis the opposition in that region, which is a complex tapestry of politics.
Absolutely. When Narendra Modi came into power in 2014, there was hardly any impact that the BJP had in the Northeast. First came the Assam elections. Followed that, they had a number of state elections that they really won. For example, Tripura was a belt which was actually conquered by the left party for a very, very long time. But it took the BJP an effort to actually ensure that they were able to throw out the government of the left, and then form their own government. Biplab Dev is sitting there as the chief minister. So that's the kind of push that you've really seen. The Northeast has been extremely significant, and one must underline the role of Himanta Biswa Sharma. Remember, who joined from the Congress party, came over to the BJP, and actually has been having a dream run of sorts, as far as the BJP is concerned in the Northeast. So the BJP has come into power not just in Assam and in Tripura on its own, but also, in states like Meghalaya, where they have an alliance with Conrad Sangma's party, and also in the other states as well. So obviously, that's what it really looks like. And, you've seen the kind of impact that has been witnessed in Arunachal as well. For example, BJP's own ally JDU's 6 MLAs joined recently. They joined the BJP recently, and they've also won the local polls over there. So essentially, that's the kind of impact that we really have seen. And the BJP has been able to establish the fact that no part of the country is untouchable and no part of the country is small. So, even when certain opposition parties, especially the Congress party, whose footprint is gradually sinking in the Northeast, they essentially did not give that kind of an importance. But, the BJP has in fact made sure that the Northeast is spoken about every step of the way. The donor ministry has been formed, and Dr. Jitendra Singh will also be accompanying Amit Shah on his visit to Manipur, where he takes part in various development projects and also other important details like Niloy was mentioning. That civil society meeting that Amit Shah will be holding is extremely critical.
Payal, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're joined by Ranjit Kumar Das, who's the state president of the Assam BJP. Mr. Das, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. All eyes on the assembly elections next year. Is the BJP confident of expanding its footprint in the state of Assam?
Hello.
Mr. Das, can you hear me?
Sound अच्छा है.
Hello, Mr. Das. Okay, I think we've lost that line with Ranjit Kumar Das. We'll try to reconnect with the president with the head of the Assam BJP. Niloy, I'll come to you on that point. Now the BJP has set up an impressive base across the Northeast. It's also formed these critical alliances across the entire region. Why is the opposition struggling in countering the saffron juggernaut in this region?
Look, I'd like to highlight one point. Yesterday's Amit Shah's visit not only relegated Congress, but also has put the cabinet profile of the leader of opposition from the Congress, Debabrata Saikia, as in jeopardy. Now Congress had 26 seats, out of which it has lost 4, and with the death of Pranab Gogoi and Tarun Kumar Gogoi, the number has come down to 20. Now the leader of opposition needs 21 seats, and so with 20 seats, Debabrata Soikia would definitely lose his cabinet ranking as the leader of opposition. Now this is the state which the Congress has been after the impressive progress of BJP. Now yesterday's joining of Ajanta Niyog and Rajdeep Goala into BJP are meeting Amit Shah and confirming that they would join BJP very soon on an auspicious date. But along with these two persons, another MLA from Jonai in Lakhimpur had met Amit Shah, and he is Bhuban Pegu. Now Bhuban Pegu is a very, very important leader as far as the missing community is concerned. Bhuban Pegu comes from Ganashakti party and contests election as an independent because their party is not registered. Now he is a representative of a very powerful missing community. Now the leader elected of this community meets Amit Shah and
Getting you some breaking news of a divide within the Aghadi alliance hitting out at allied Congress. The Shiv Sena in the Samna editorial has said that anti-BJP parties should unite under the UPA banner. But the editorial goes on to say that those in power at the centre, namely the Congress, were indifferent towards the ongoing farmers' protest, and an ineffective opposition is the most prominent reason behind the government's apathy. So hitting out clearly at the Congress, saying that an ineffective opposition is the most prominent reason behind the government's apathy. The Congress, which is in opposition at the national level, has turned, this is what the Shiv Sena is saying, feeble and disintegrated. I'm joined by Pallavi Ghosh on the broadcast. Pallavi, scathing remarks coming in from Shiv Sena against the Congress. Is the fissures are open in the Aghadi alliance, and is this a renewed push for a new UPA chairperson?
You know, Ayushman, the alliance was always considered to be an unnatural one. I mean, the Shiv Sena and the Congress party were traditionally at loggerheads with each other, and both of them stand for completely different ideologies and points of view. But just to keep the BJP away, they decided all to come together. So it doesn't come as a surprise if there's going to be those periodic difference of opinions, these barbs at each other. The context, of course, is very important. The context is because of the speculation that there's a strong pitch by many of the UPA allies that after Sonia Gandhi, the best person really to take over and lead the UPA to success, to take on the fight against the BJP, would be a Sharad Pawar. That hasn't been welcomed by the Congress party, but the Shiv Sena also has made comments about the Congress party and Rahul Gandhi, saying that Rahul Gandhi is not the best leader to lead the party or to lead the UPA. And Shiv Sena has very good equations with the NCP also because their government depends on them. And therefore, they are nudging that Sharad Pawar perhaps should be considered, which is why we have the reaction coming in from Ashok Chavan saying that Shiv Sena is not a part of the UPA. And the second thing is, it's our party, we decide how it needs to be run.
But at the same time, Pallavi, is the NCP now playing a wait-and-watch game?
See, the dilemma within the NCP is just too simple. One, if you look at Sharad Pawar's politics, very often he doesn't take a clear stand. He doesn't want to be seen completely with the UPA and Congress party on all issues, because that also helps him to have the negotiations going perhaps with the BJP, given the kind of politics which is emerging in our country. And therefore, to become the UPA chairperson at this point of time, and that's what NCP sources are telling us, would mean that you finally defined which side you are going to be on. That is something which the NCP doesn't want to say at this point of time. Second, yes, NCP is an important player. More importantly, not just in Maharashtra, but Sharad Pawar certainly is one leader who perhaps could keep all the allies together. I mean, very quickly, for example, maybe a junior leader or a smaller party would not want to listen to, say, a Rahul Gandhi or a Congress party would certainly find it very difficult not to listen to Sharad Pawar.
Thank you, Pallavi, for joining us on the broadcast. That divide between the Congress and the Shiv Sena only expanding. That's all we have to pack in on the show. But before that, don't forget to follow CNN News 18 on Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. And remember to follow road signs and traffic laws for road safety.